Newcomers to my style of game analysis might not know exactly what I'm doing with my video game writing. The thing, such as it can be of these articles, is that I believe in using talking about video games as a venue for talking about culture. When I play a game, I might wind up talking about mortality and dictators, the nexus of creator and work, the death of the author, or the dislocated reality of Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, that kind of talk people make fun of where people read too much into video games? I do that, basically. Sometimes, though, I'll play a game and just not find anything to talk about. This is usually because the game is either really good, but in a really obvious way, or the game doesn't grab me well enough to make me care. Sometimes it's a game that's extraordinarily competent in ways I know I can't really appreciate. Sometimes it's a game that I find boring or that makes me angry. Now, lately I've been ripping through my game pile. I'm actually almost halfway through marking my collection done, and that's kind of impressive. And I wanted to give a little short nod to a handful of games that don't really warrant a whole rundown, but with reasons why I bailed on them. Often it's nothing interesting, and sometimes it's mean-spirited, but hey, mean-spirited can be fun. So, Dragon Age. The character creation interface for this is super squinty, and it made me recognize how most RPGs just fall apart at starting quickly these days. They either get like Fallout 4, that's a call ahead, keep up, where you have to play through a terrible bottleneck and sit through ponderous setup where you're only vaguely aware of what you're doing, or it drops you in the deep end and asks you to measure whether you want more intelligence or lucidity. I'll come back to Dragon Age because I know someone who loves it, but I'm not likely to do that soon. Cogs. Sometimes a puzzle game is just really simple and good. This is the kind of game I'd have seen my dad spend literal days on back when I was a little kid. This is someone's favorite puzzler. It's not mine, but it's absolutely not bad. Plain Sight. It doesn't work anymore. Shadwen. The central mechanic is super interesting. It's a stealth game where nothing moves except when you move. It's also got a really clunky camera and a grappling hook mechanic that does not work with that time stop premise the way that it thinks it does. Mostly I spent my time playing it trying to find reasons to go and play Dishonored 2 again, which isn't a good sign. Wolfenstein: The New Order is a game that I tapped out of 2/3 of the way in with a stewing feeling of unhappiness at its unreal world and its faux cinematic pretensions towards a real feeling space. And something about how when the game was trying to be Dishonored, it was lots of fun, and the rest of the time it was a dull slog. But the really damning thing is I had to write notes on the game and find them again to remember anything about it. I somehow found this game where you could stab Nazis in the neck boring enough to not bother finishing. There's something to be said about the history of Wolfenstein, or maybe something about the presence of the new Colossus in the media landscape, but I find myself too bored by this game to be that person. That kind of opinion should come from a position of rage or grace. Fallout 4. You move like you're made of plasticine. You look bad. The control system is not designed for mouse and keyboard, and the interface is lacking in the basic polish I'd expect of a game 10 years old at this point. Also, everything being voiced means I have to play at the pace of the voice acting. Combat doesn't feel fun. I asked the game after 20 minutes if it was going to give me anything other than nostalgia for New Vegas, and it turns out, no, it wasn't going to. Broken Age. Hey, you know all those people who are mad about this game for taking a long time, and all the people who are mad at it for being a modern point and clicker when we were promised a retro one, and all those people who are mad at it for featuring a woman because gamers are gamers? Well, I'm not mad at it for any of those reasons. I'm mad at it because the interface for playing this game is maddening, and that's a solved bloody problem. Final Fantasy VII. You might imagine, perhaps deep down, that there was something worth talking about here. For the vast importance of this cultural touchstone, that maybe there'd be some sort of fascinating inner thesis, some final, true inner life of the game to talk about as a play experience. There isn't. This is one of the most overwrought games I've ever kind of barely played. It's a game almost overwhelmingly about needless interruptions, with every action being about less of a perceivable consequence and more about treating the animation of your attacks like they're the reward cutscene at the end of a campaign. Final Fantasy VII is a favorite for a lot of people, but if you didn't already love it, it's stunningly hard to love. But at the same time, it's so vast, it's not even easy to hate. The game has a lot of its heart in the right place. It's just an extremely primitive game.